Hey there YouTube, Travis here. So tonight we're going to be taking apart and putting back together the clutch on a Sachs 505. So I get the impression that Sachs doesn't get as much love as it should from the moped community. I feel like this is because of a more limited access to bolt-on performance parts, compared to a Puch or a Tomos, and also this clutch, which just seems to be really misunderstood. Why do I think this? Because when I was asking advice from people about how to fix this clutch, I kept getting this answer.
Sachs? It's just one more bolt. You put a Minarelli V1 on it.
So this bike has a very minor problem where you'll feel the clutch kind of bite back when you go from a dead stop all the way to full throttle. Let me see if I can show you guys here when the bike's outside. What I'm trying to show here is that whenever I'd go from dead stop to full throttle, I'd feel a little bit of almost like a kickback. The bike would kind of lurch for a second, and you could feel it in the engine, and then it would be fine and it would take off. Otherwise, this bike runs and rides pretty darn near perfect. It's a 1985 General 5-star that has 800 original miles that I got it with 300 miles on around a year ago. Now you heard it a little bit there. It did a little pop. I'll highlight that in the video editing software for you guys. Alright, let's go ahead and take this thing apart and see what we can do. Alright YouTube, well, this is my roommate Will. So let's get to work.
First we're going to take off the left side cover. You can just undo this by hand. There would be another one right here, but we only have one.
Welcome to the side of your engine.
You can leave your carb on and your air filter on. That's really like all you have to take off is the side cover.
Okay, so Will, the first thing we gotta do is drain all the transmission fluid out, right?
Yep, and the proper way to do this would be to undo this and turn the bike on its side and let it drain out. But since we're taking this cover off anyway, we might as well just let it drain out when we pull the cover.
So, we're gonna undo our 5 flathead screws on the front of the clutch cover. So once again, these little screwdriver attachments for a socket are really handy for these to help avoid stripping the screws. Alright, so here we go. So you got all the screws loose and this thing just pulls off, or?
Should. This one's being a pain.
Alright, so our fluid's starting to drip out. There we go. Cool, so all that comes off. We get to take a look at our clutch here. There's our gasket still hanging out on the side of the engine.
Alright, next we're going to take out this long bolt here that's holding in the starter clutch arm. So that's just this huge bolt on here on the top of the case. There it goes. And as you take this out, this spring should pop out, and this bushing up here should pop out too. Just hold on to those because you'll need those.
There's a long screw.
There we go.
So we got all these pieces here, yep.
And then you can just let this arm, you can just kind of push it out of the way. You don't need to disconnect it from the cable. Just kind of keep it out of your way. There you go. Next, once you got that off, this little bell here will come right off. That'll just pull out. This is what the starter clutch pushes on to engage the engine. But you can also, if you have a nice tool here, you can grab this flat washer and hold on to that while you try to back off the nut.
Yeah, my piston stop is right here, actually.
There we go.
Alright.
So you have, first off comes your nut, and then make sure you keep these pieces in order. There's this weird flat washer. And then this next piece is your infamous shim. Come on, this big round washer. There we go. There's the shim. So this shim looks like about 1 millimeter thick. We don't have a set of calipers, which we really should, but we don't, so we can't measure it. But it seems like on the stock bikes, it's usually about 1 millimeter, 1.2 thick. You can buy Treat sells a couple. I think a 1 millimeter and maybe 1.2. Moped Junkyard has a few more if you really need to play with the setting a lot more to change the clutch engagement. This controls how much the clutch plates can slide out before they engage.
So like if you have a kit or something you want a different engagement time, you can mess with this, right?
Yep.
Ah. But for our stock purposes, we're probably going to leave that alone, right?
Yeah, and so the way you can measure actually is once this nut is torqued down, you can measure the clearance between the nut and either the nut and the flat washer or the flat washer and the shim. It doesn't matter. The flat washer will move around a little bit on there.
Yeah.
But with a feeler gauge, it needs to be between 0.4 and 0.6 millimeters between these two for a stock setup.
Good to know. Right on.
Now I'm going to carefully try to pull out all the plates and discs without messing them up too much. Sometimes you can get them by hand. It's just tricky. I'll try to get the first couple with this screwdriver. There we go. And don't lose these. These are these kind of washer things are springs to push these guys apart.
Yeah.
So here's the first one, and then this tooth gear, pulling that out can sometimes help get a little more of them out. This rotates on the crankshaft. This rotates with the metal plates, and these fiber plates here rotate on this bell, which moves the pedal shaft or the drive shaft. And then this guy here sits on the crankshaft.
Ah, interesting.
Another washer.
And there's the second plate.
Yep.
Cool.
And then this metal plate here. And then there's this little shim here, and this is the donut. This is basically a spring that expands outward through centrifugal force.
And for our purposes, that can stay in?
Yeah, that should be okay. It's really hard. There's no good way to test if the donut's functioning or not. So if you rebuild all this stuff and you're still having problems with the clutch engagement, you could try the donut. This is your whole setup here. All these guys. The two thicker metal plates go towards the outside. And this goes on. This is the furthest inside. This is closest to the donut, this thinnest one.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the order doesn't matter. And then this little toothed guy goes through all these.
Oh.
The one I took apart before, the clutch pads looked a lot worse. These are almost new. They only have about 800 miles on them, so they don't look that bad at all. The oil passages are still, look fine. Maybe we could, cut them out just a little bit more, but these look pretty good.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about and kind of confused about is all this, crossways, this scoring on these metal plates. I can't imagine what that would be from, because all the pads and plates are all rubbing, against each other in a circular motion. And you can see that wear, but you can also see this wear going all across
kind of perpendicular to that, yeah.
Almost like someone took like some steel wool or something, just went shh.
Huh.
I don't know if that's maybe from some metal shavings that got in there. This guy looks like it got real hot.
Yeah.
You can see that, and I can even feel the metal is a little messed up.
Now, you were telling me that it's often heat that's the death of these Sachs motors too.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, some people even mod oil coolers into these, but yeah, this does look like it got pretty hot.
I do know it had that improper oil in it that was low, So that might have possibly done that.
Yeah, we can see this. It still should be okay.
Yeah.
But if we put this all back together and we're still having some issues, a good candidate for replacement would be these metal plates.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna clean up a couple of these, but these are really, I mean, almost perfect. The pads I took off the other bike, these were all, it was worn down to the point where you couldn't see half of these oil passages anymore. It had worn down past that point. So to put this all back together, first you can put this gear guy on. Just slide that all the way back. Then put the thinnest, this is important, the thinnest plate goes closest to the donut. And it should slide over that gear. It'll take a little messing with, but it'll get on there. Next you use one of your clutch pads. And these have these little nubs that go in the notches in the bell. Then a little spring washer kind of thing. Come on. Well, there it goes. And then another plate. Another pad. Washer, spring washer. And your last plate.
The thicker one, right?
Yep, yeah, the thicker ones. The two outer ones are the same size.
Oh, okay.
This is the hardest to get on because you have to push against the washer to get it to stay. There it goes. Perfect. Alright, now that we got the clutch assembly in, just put our shim on there. That big flat washer. And then the nut. Make sure you hold this down as you're putting these on there so it doesn't all spring off at you. Then you have to do this all again. Some people say these spin off and you should put Loctite on it. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
It's up to you, really. If you really want to make absolutely sure that's not going to come off, go for it. But
however, most people are going to be playing with their shims, so they're going to be taking it on and off.
exactly. I would at least say don't put Loctite on it until you're absolutely sure that your clutch is set up exactly how you want it. Next, we'll put this little cup on. This little protrusion goes in through the hole right there in the crankshaft. Now we're ready to hook up the starter clutch arm again. Make sure you got your washer, your copper washer here on top. Pull this guy out. Oops. This bushing goes on the top. Then the bolt goes through here. And then this spring, this part of the spring hooks into the starter clutch arm. You can kind of, if you can kind of see, zoom in right there. It comes in, it hooks in right there.
Yeah, I can see it.
And this bolt also goes through it. You kind of have to compress it just a little bit to get it in between the case and the clutch arm. And just push that through for now. And then, once you got this starting to thread, you can take a screwdriver and just pull this little tab in the spring inside the case. And then it just braces it against the case, and that keeps this from sticking in. It pushes it back out after you let go of the clutch lever, like that. And you just tighten this down. And we'll use the wrench to get that real good in a second. This little brass screw here, you can use to change the clearance between the arm and this little bell here if you're having trouble with the clutch engaging or staying on. You just take the screwdriver and adjust this here. A lot of people say it should be about, if you have feeler gauges, this should be about 1 to 2 millimeters off of the little bell here. You don't have to make this too tight, but just, you know, get it so that it's not coming back out. Now we're going to put the cover back on. Really, you'd want to use a new gasket here. I'm sure you can get that at Treats or 77 or any of those places.
Or make your own.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. This is a nice big thick gasket, so just make a thick one. But we're going to use this. This is not that old and it looks fine. Just these 5 screws. I'll just get it started so it can stay on.
So the final step is going to be refilling this crankcase with transmission fluid. We're using type F here. Cool. So we'll go ahead and take this out. Alright, so we're going to fill this up and we're going to fill it until it reaches the bottom of this fill hole. Alright, so with our fluid level perfect, we can go ahead and reinstall our plug. Of all the parts that can strip out on a moped, this is my favorite. And finally, of course, your side cover goes back on. Alright YouTube, well, the bike's all back together. I'm going to take it outside. It's pretty dark, but we'll see what we can do. I could not have done this without my roommate and best friend Will. He really did a lot of the work figuring out that clutch, and I'm very grateful for it. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Alright, let's go see what this thing can do. Alright YouTube, until next time!